Bowman, and I'm a Science Content Specialist at the Ohio Resource Center for Mathematics, Science, and Reading, more commonly known as ORC. Joining me today are two outstanding classroom teachers, Tracy Schnipke, a middle school science teacher from Lima, Ohio, and Kim McEldowney, an experienced high school science teacher from Mississinewa Valley Schools, Union City, Ohio. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for inviting me.
This podcast on reference materials is part of a series of podcasts that provides an overview of the sections found in the New Teacher Survival Guide. Each podcast has a science teacher bookshelf and many collections of resources to supplement them. Podcast titles include Assessment, In the Lab, Plants and Animals in the Classroom, Science in the Elementary Classroom, Teaching Science, and Special Needs Students in the Science Classroom. This podcast discusses ways that you can use resources such as real-time data sets, online field guides, and chemistry-related content resources in your classroom. These are the types of resources found in the reference materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. I would also encourage you to take a look at these resources if you have access to a computer while we are discussing them. I would like to start off today by talking about real-time data sets. And I'd like to ask you, Tracy, to describe what real-time data sets are.
Real-time data sets contain data that is being collected as we speak. The information is being used by scientists studying a variety of different topics, many of which are available for classroom use.
We have quite a few examples of real-time data sets in the ORC collection. ORC resource number 8114, USGS Real-Time Water Data for the Nation, is one example that gives real-time data on surface and groundwater for any of the 50 states that you wish to have access to. This resource is particularly useful for the classroom, as students can connect with the real world that they live in by obtaining water data for a specific county, as well as specific bodies of water within that county. Kim, you found another great example of a real-time data set that ORC has in its collection. ORC resource number 8091, U.S. Geological Survey Earthquake Hazards Program. Could you tell us a little bit more about this resource?
Sure. This is another real-time data set that provides users with clickable maps showing scientific data on any earthquake that has taken place in the world. This makes scientific data much more applicable to students' lives when they can obtain earthquake data from an earthquake that has taken place close to their homes. This resource could be used in the classroom by showing students where earthquakes have occurred around Ohio to reinforce the understanding that earthquakes have and could occur in the area where they live. It could also be used to show the occurrences of earthquakes daily to help show that the Earth's surface is continuing to change. The data can also be used to discuss the effects of earthquakes on the people in the area and how the amount of damage from an earthquake varies with different magnitudes of intensity.
Tracy, I know you teach in a middle school science classroom, and one of the Ohio Earth Science benchmarks covered at the middle school level requires students to describe the processes that contribute to the continuous changing of Earth's surface. Could you talk about how you might use this same resource in your inquiry-based middle school science classroom to help teach this benchmark?
First of all, I love this website. It indicates the places where earthquake seismic movement has taken place over the past 7 days. This site also helps students realize that our planet is changing all of the time and is constantly in motion. One way I plan on using this site with my 8th graders is to track the locations and dates of the earthquakes throughout the unit. This will probably take place over a month or so, making it a long-term project. Another way I may use the site is to launch into an inquiry lesson about fault lines. On the site, it has a map of the U.S. showing the various fault lines present in the United States. After learning a few basics about fault lines, I may say to the students, Ohio is sitting on one of the largest fault lines in the U.S. They may or may not believe me. I do think this will get the kids excited and will hopefully get them engaged in the content. I may tell them, if you don't believe me, prove me wrong. I would then send the students to the site to gain evidence to support or disprove their hypothesis. Either way, the point is that they are exploring the site and finding and using the data themselves.
We've discussed a couple of different types of ORC resources that are examples of real-time data sets. Kim, could you talk about how these types of resources support inquiry?
When students use real-time data sets, they see themselves as scientists. They begin to become responsible for their own learning by asking new questions and trying new ideas. Their learning becomes real to them.
That's great insight on how data sets can be used to support inquiry. I'd also like to point out that Ohio's science inquiry standards require students to read, construct, and interpret data in various forms at many different grade levels. These real-time data sets, when used along with an ORC lesson, can be used to collect and interpret data while also tying Ohio's content and process standards together. Let's move on to ORC's online field guides. ORC has numerous online field guides in the reference materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide and in the searchable database that can help you and your students identify trees, birds, reptiles, fish, wildflowers, and rocks, as well as many others. These field guides can be excellent tools in an inquiry-based classroom. ORC resource number 417, What Tree Is It?, is an online field guide that allows users to identify trees by fruit, leaf, scientific, or common name. Kim, I know you have some ideas about how to use this resource in your inquiry-based classroom.
Students and teachers could bring in leaves and fruit from various trees and be asked to identify the name of the tree from which they came. They could also go outside around the school or a nearby wildlife area, collect leaves, and take digital pictures of trees, leaves, and their fruit, and identify the trees through this method. Once they have collected their information, they could also create their own field guides.
Great idea. Tracy, we have additional online field guides in the ORC collection. ORC resource number 2181, Ohio's Reptiles, is one specific example. Could you share with the listeners how you might use this resource in your middle school science classroom?
I might use this in my evolution unit and have the students explore the site on the first day. I would remind the students that we are in the process of learning about the way animals have adapted over time. Then I would tell them that they need to find 3 different reptiles on the site and learn a little bit more about them. The second day I would give them a more direct assignment. On the site we explored yesterday, you looked at 3 different reptiles that you found interesting. Today, I want you to become more of an expert on these 3 reptiles. Remember, we have been working and learning about how different organisms have adapted over time. I would like you to find out what special adaptations help your organism survive. Finally, I would have the students choose their favorite animal and share the information with the rest of the class.
For many other online field guides, go to ORC's searchable database or to the reference materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. The last type of reference material that I'd like to talk about are the chemistry-related content resources found in the reference materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide. These are resources that provide content support for the implementation of best practices and effective classroom instruction, but they are not full lessons. They may consist of resources such as online periodic tables, searchable chemical databases and international system of units, material safety data sheets, and many others. These reference materials could easily be incorporated into inquiry-based chemistry lessons or used by science teachers as references. Tracy, could you give the listeners an example for how you might use an online periodic table such as ORC resource number 210 in your classroom?
Chemistry can be such an abstract concept for a lot of students. I recently learned about non-linguistic representation, and for many students, this helps in making abstract thoughts more concrete. This site focuses on periodic tables and provides excellent non-linguistic representations for each of the elements. This would really be helpful to students taking chemistry. It could help them remember the unique properties of each element.
Could you clarify what non-linguistic representations are?
Sure. Non-linguistic representations are techniques that involve drawings, graphic organizers, visualizations, performances, or some type of kinesthetic learning. Enhancing the development of these non-linguistic representations increases students' understanding of the content.
We also have other chemistry-related content resources that are valuable to new teachers in particular. Kim, how might you use ORC resource number 8117, the National Institute of Standards and Technology reference on constants, units, and uncertainty in your high school science classroom?
This resource provides an excellent reference for International System of Units. It provides an introduction and background information for the SI units, as well as prefixes and unit conversions. This resource could be used in the classroom to define the basic SI base units and provide historical context as to the origin of the unit so that the students gain a better understanding of the standards of measurements in the SI system.
I hope this discussion has provided you with some new ways to use real-time data sets, online field guides, and chemistry-related content resources in your classroom. For additional resources focusing on reference materials, go to the Reference Materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide on ORC's website or use the search feature to look for lessons at www.ohioRC.org. I would like to thank Tracy Schnipke and Kim McEldowney for taking part in this podcast focusing on the Reference Materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Don't forget to check out the resources that supplement this podcast by going to the Science Educators page on ORC's website and clicking on New Teacher Survival Guide. For the Ohio Resource Center, I'm Christy Bowman, hoping you gain some insight into the types of resources found in the Reference Materials section of the New Teacher Survival Guide.